With Colonel Ruffs' new star power, you can give your teammates an extra 30 health every single second as long as they're within a 3 1/3 tile radius of you. This is a pretty cool new mechanic that we have added to the game, and it might sound kind of broken at first because you're changing essentially the base stats of your teammates, which already there aren't many abilities in the game that can do that, just Colonel Ruffs super. But then again, 30 health per second is pretty low, so we're going to look at exactly how much value you're going to get when you run the star power in various modes and how it compares to its other star power, so you'll know if this new one is any good. So since you're going to be giving 30 health per second to any teammate in your range, then if you're able to be near your teammates for 34 seconds, then you're going to give them a total of 1020 health. So about 1000 health takes 34 seconds of time that you have to be near them. Now the real catch is that they can't die during this time, because when they die, then all these buffs are reset. So they have to stay alive for those 34 seconds. And right off the bat, that basically means the star power is going to be essentially worthless until you're at like the 700 or 750 trophy range. And especially if you're playing with randoms, because if that's the case, people are just going to be dying left and right, and you won't actually be able to get any meaningful amounts of health off on your teammates. Like a 1000 health buff is pretty significant and is definitely going to change many different interactions, but half that much at just like 500 health, really not going to change too many interactions, and even that takes 15 seconds that you have to be near your teammates. So if your teammates are going to be dying a lot, then the star power just gives no value. It's definitely a lot better to stick to the other star power that boosts your super damage by 1000, because that's just your stats. You don't really have to care about what your teammates are doing to get value out of that. But at that higher trophy level, if you do manage to stay alive, then this can be a pretty valuable star power. Matches usually last about 2.5 minutes depending on the mode, so that's a potential of 4500 health you can boost to your teammates if they are standing within your range the entire time and you're just buffing one teammate at a time, because I highly doubt at that high trophy range you're going to have everyone grouped up together near you at once. That's just some really bad positioning. So in the absolute ideal situation, you're essentially giving 4500 health to your opponents, which is pretty good, but it's actually going to be quite a bit more than that, because since your base health is being buffed, whenever you heal back to full health, your opponents have to deal that extra health that you have in order to get you back down to where you would be normally without the buff. So essentially every time you heal back to full health, you're gaining more value out of these extra base hit points that you got. So once again, that just really encourages staying alive as long as possible, because that's just going to get you the most possible value that you can get out of this star power. So it works really well when you're on a team and can coordinate with other people, and especially if you're all really good and at high trophies, because those games tend to be a lot more conservative, so it's going to be a lot easier to get value. Now this star power is pretty fun to pair with someone like a Frank with the sponge star power. You have over 10,000 hit points just to start. You give them your super, that's a plus 700 health buff, and then you can increase their max health 30 health per second on top of that. But the thing is, when you do that to brawlers who already have a lot of HP, it's not going to be as good in certain situations, because the percentage increase of that HP is going to be less than if you were healing a lower health brawler, because then 30 HP would make up a larger percentage of their base health. And in a lot of cases, that percentage is what's really important, because if you're like a Frank with 10,000 HP and you end up dying, that's going to be a situation where probably all 3 opponents are targeted on you, or you have like a Shelly directly up in your face. And in that case, an extra 1000 or so hit points isn't going to do much, because you already have so much damage that they're outputting. Then a lot of times they are going to be doing a bit more damage than they need to kill you. But when you're a really low health brawler like Tick, usually the times when you die is going to be just barely. There's like a single shot from a sprout that kills you over a wall or some situation like that. So in that case, if you have a plus 1000 health, that's going to be extremely beneficial. So if you are running this star power in 3v3 modes, it really helps to focus on the teammate who has lower health, because it'll give them a bigger percentage health buff, and that's going to have more value over the course of a match. And in fact, the example that I brought up with Tick, he's a really good option to do that for, because not only does he have the lowest health in the game, but he also has the well-oiled star power, which is going to let him refill up to full health so many times. And like I said, every time you refill to full health, you get more value out of that base HP increase that you got. So it's a perfect combination with Tick, with that star power and the fact that he has low health, and with his new gadget, Last Hurrah, he's going to be staying alive a lot more easily, even if your opponent has like an Edgar or a Mortis, so you don't really have to worry about that health buff going to waste as often. So that's a pretty good combination we could consider. And I think overall with this star power, there's definitely a potential for some really high skill cap plays, because if you're trying to use your star power optimally, you just want to give one of your teammates enough health so that they can have a better interaction in whatever lane they are playing in, and then you want to go over to your other teammate and give them whatever help they need. So then it becomes really important to know exactly how much much damage your opponents do and how much health you're going to need to give to one of your teammates, that way they maybe survive one more shot from the opponent that they're laning with. And there's a lot of complex things you could consider to get the most value out of this star power, which I think is pretty interesting and why this star power is so fun. But if we just think about it in general, like, you're probably only going to get maybe 2,000 health buff over the course of a match, because you're not really going to be staying near your teammates the whole time. It's hard to do that, especially if you're dying yourself, and also just because staying near your teammates a lot of times isn't great positioning. So you want to stay spread out and you want to stay covering a large area of the field. So it's kind of a bad idea as it is to stay close to your teammates. And just a flat plus 1,000 damage to your super, as long as you're using like 4 or more supers over the course of the match, that's 4,000 extra damage you're getting on your opponents. Whereas with this new star power, you're probably only going to be reducing on average about 4,000 of the damage that you get from your opponents, including the times after you refill to full health after your teammates take damage. So even just considering the straight numbers, it's probably more likely that you're going to get more overall damage advantage on your opponents if you're using the first star power, because you just get a lot of supers when you're playing Colonel Ruffs. But that's mainly for 3v3 modes. But we can also consider duo showdown, and this is a completely different ball game, because duo showdown, you can have all the free time in the world to just camp the entire time. And so you can just stay in a bush or not stay in a bush, because it actually doesn't matter with the star power, since your opponents can see you when you're in a bush and using it. And basically just camp near your opponent the entire time, just feed them with a ton of health, become pretty strong even if you don't have too many power cubes, and that'll give you a pretty huge advantage in the late game when it comes down to it in duo showdown. So in that mode only, I think this star power is going to be really, really good. Now, as other star power in duo showdown gets very, very little value, because most people are going to be playing at pretty long range, so it's going to be hard to hit people with your super anyway. So you definitely want to run this new star power in duo showdown, and I think it is going to be a very, very good star power in that mode. But everywhere else, like I said, it's not that great, especially if you're at low trophies. You don't even want to consider it. Maybe if you're at a really high trophy level with a fixed team, it might be something that you want to experiment with. Maybe some particular comps, like with these low health brawlers like Tick, might find some really good value out of it. But generally speaking, the first star power is a much better and a much safer choice, so I would recommend going with that one. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and a comment down below if you did, and don't forget to check out this playlist if you want to see more guides I made on Colonel Ruffs and other brawlers in Brawl Stars. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.